Hi, in this next video we're going to be dealing with the balancing of the EZ-Gimbal with a Twist. It's got a couple more steps over the top of the balancing guide that you would have seen for the normal EZ-Gimbal. The initial steps for the EZ-Gimbal have just a couple of variations in this case. The four outside screws of the slider mechanism need to be just loose enough so that you can actually slide the plate left and right, but not so loose that they'll just slide on their own. The reason being is that once we've balanced it in the landscape orientation and then rotate the portrait orientation, you don't want that sideways slider, which is now up and down, to just slide down, because it needs its own balancing. As before with the EZ-Gimbal, just make sure that that middle screw is just tight enough so that it holds the camera in place, but you can still slide it down if need be. The down position is where we're going to start. So once again I get my rubber strip. It's going to sit in between the camera and the tray. So I'll just attach the camera mounted on the tray using the larger aluminium lock screw. Its position at the moment is just probably about 16mm back from the zero, and it's lined up and straight. Plus it has to be turned on in my case because I've got the power zoom lens, which needs to be extended to the distance it will be for operation. So as before, we're balancing the pitch first. We've got the tray all the way down to the vertical distance it will go. And now if I hold on to the roll and release the pitch, it'll want to go backwards, so it's currently rear heavy. So I'm just going to slide the camera forward. Okay, so if I hold the roll assembly and just release it either slightly forward, pretty much wants to level. So now the next thing we need to do is start to slide the camera upwards so that when I do this, it stays there. So I'm just going to push that vertical slider, the up-down slider, upwards by about 5mm. Now we're top heavy, so we've got to come down a bit. Still a little top heavy. Down a fraction more. Still a fraction top heavy. Push down a fraction more. So the aim of the game here is I should be able to release the camera pointing at any pitch angle that I leave it at. So now the pitch is balanced. Not going to be fussed about the roll balance just yet. The next thing you need to do is get the balance right for the portrait orientation rotated. So now that we've got the correct vertical balance and fore-aft balance, we need to tighten that middle screw. So if you've got one of these that fits the head of the lock nuts, best thing, you just tighten that middle screw. So now the vertical balance won't move. So now we can rotate the camera round to the portrait orientation so that it's all the way around, keeping in mind that this top screw here has to be just loose enough to allow you to rotate it without it being sloppy. So in the portrait orientation, I'm just going to move it around. You can see it's heavy at the top here because when I do this it wants to roll down. So to correct that, we need to slide it that way. I'll slide it slightly down. Still a little bit heavy this end. So in this orientation, the left-right slider now becomes the vertical balance slider. So that's looking pretty good now. Now that I've got the orientation set right for the portrait, now that I've got the balance set right for the portrait orientation, I need to tighten all of the screws that are on the slider. So that I've already tightened the middle one, so that just leaves the 4 outside screws. Now to do that, the other side of the pitch assembly has slots that lets you access the other side of the countersunk screws in these positions here, because you need not only your shifter but also the hex screwdriver. So I'll start with the bottom one. This is where it gets a little fiddly. Okay, now with the top one locked in place, I can then go through the other 3. I have to flip it over the other way, come in from the bottom. Tighten that one as well. And then tighten that one. If you've got yourselves one of these, very helpful. Then you can get to the bottom screw and tighten it up. Now I've got all 5 of the screws balanced for the pitch assembly, and I can rotate it back. Now make a note that with the Sony NEX6 that balancing in both portrait and landscape orientation has shifted the camera to a position where it cleanly rotates without catching on the edge here on the side of the camera. I'm assuming that's going to be an extreme case in my case, because the NEX6 is a larger camera than the NEX5. NEX5 will basically be pretty much centre of there as well, but with a bit more gap on this side, so you shouldn't have any issues at all with the NEX5 once it's balanced in both portrait and landscape orientations. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is get the roll balance sorted out, because it's currently heavy on that side. So this is where you need to get your little 2mm Allen key. Alright, so if you have a look in the back here, you'll see there's 4 little screws that are attaching the roll mechanism to the roll motor. So first thing we need to do is just slide the roll assembly across away from the side that's heavy, so that when we rotate the roll it doesn't want to go back, it just stays where you leave it. So that's pretty good at the moment. So now I can tighten those 4 screws, and as you can see it's a very tight spot in there, so you have to use one of these. It doesn't take a lot to tighten them, so don't go crazy tightening them. Okay, so just get my 4 balanced sorted out because that wasn't quite right. Back a smidge. Straighten up the camera with that ruler at the back. Okay, so that's looking pretty good now. So I've got the roll and the pitch sorted out for the balance in both portrait and landscape orientations.